Shalom, Kaholo Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bahashim Kakodash, double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of GMS, including the elders that came before them that taught us his truth. Shalom and salutations to all the brothers out pushing the word of truth and in sincerity, the hopeful elect tabernacle of David. I'm the brother Yahshua. I'm back with the WW3 Daily update. Shalom and salutations to you on this Monday, the first day of the update for the next 5 days. All right, so we're going to start right here, 2nd Ezra's 16, and we're going to get straight into geopolitical news as it relates to the war that is escalating every day in more ways than just shooting. All right, there's a famine going on. I'm going to start right here. And I just did this in my previous video, use the same scripture. And that's what it's going to be like as things come crashing down into an eventual end. Things are going to move faster, and we're going to zero in on these specific prophecies that are coming to pass and have yet to come to pass. So this is 2 Ezra 16 and 17. Woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death. Okay? Famine and great death, the beginning of wars. And the power shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils, bad times. What shall I do when these evils shall come? Okay? Behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. All right? Plague could mean CV, the 80% kill rate that they brought it up to. It could mean the missiles, tribulation, Jacob's trouble, anguish, everybody. All right, this is going to happen to everybody. It's going to be in an anguish type situation. Life, as we know it, is going to change into anguish. You understand? Let's look that up. Anguish. Let's see. Let's see. Where can we go? We'll go right here. Anguish. All right. Anguish, severe mental or physical pain or suffering. All right. That's the noun. To be extremely distressed about self, about life in general. Okay. Severe mental or physical pain or suffering. All right. That's going to be on everybody. All right. So let's, we're going to watch this, this channel called the Duran. We're going to let them give us a little update on geopolitics as it relates to World War III. Okay. So let me see. How do we do this? Okay. So they're about to do ads in 5 minutes. Slovakia. I'm going to start this at the top. So it winds down. Okay. There they go with this Halloween shit. Okay, so this is the Duran channel. Damn, look at this. Russia begins dismantling Biden's neocon Ukraine project. All right. This is what this war is really all about. Okay, so this guy's going to do his diatribe and they're going to start. So here we go.
All right, Alexander, let's talk about Ukraine. Lots to get to, but the big story, I guess, is is definitely the drone attack in Sevastopol, the Russian Federation pulling out of the grain deal, and the revelation from the Ministry of Defense and then the Russian Foreign Ministry that, well, they claim that the UK was behind the sabotage of Nord Stream 1 and
2.
Nord Stream Two.
Okay, so that's big, all right? Because we all thought that America did it, and by proxy, they did do it, but now it's come out, and the Russians are aware that it was the UK or England that blew up those pipelines, all right? And now that is that's a cause for war, right? And Russia is going to get that get back. Now we know that Russia didn't do it to themselves. No, they waited and they were calm. They hunkered down for a minute. Now, what are we about to about to see? Now he said two things. He mentioned the grain deal. What is the grain deal? Right? Russia's grain. Grain is what? That's food. Going into what? Famine and great death, the beginning of wars. All right, we just broke that down. So we're watching this in geopolitics. All of these things are connected to the wars. All right, so let him talk.
So we haven't talked about this on the Duran yet, but what are your thoughts on all of these topics? And I was thinking this morning in the video that I did this morning that everyone is talking about when you get to the grain deal and you talk about your thoughts on the grain deal and Russia pulling out. I was thinking,
do you know the U.S. solar company's nasty little secret?
Slovakia. It's hella commercials, boy.
I was thinking this morning on my video that, everyone is talking about the grain deal in Odessa, but, that grain deal that the Russians entered into in July had two components to it. There was the Odessa component, which was kind of minor, if you ask me. The big component to that grain deal was lifting sanctions on Russian grain and fertilizer.
All right, all having to do with the famine. All right, Odessa is in Ukraine. That's one of the crown jewels of Russia. Happens to be in Ukraine. So they don't really want to destroy it or decimate it, but they may have to for the greater war. All right, and now they're about to speak on this famine. I mean, extrapolate when you're dealing with grain. They're about to starve. See, starving somebody out is part of war tact. Right, go ask Sun Tzu.
And allowing that grain and fertilizer to enter the market, which over the past 4 months just has not happened because the sanctions may have been lifted by the collective West, but they created all kinds of different obstacles to get the Russian grain, not Ukrainian grain, Russian grain, to the markets that need it, the poorest countries in the world. And so no one is talking about that component, which I think was the actual main component of that entire grain deal that was signed in July. Anyway, I was just thinking about that this morning as I was doing my video. That no one's really talking about the important part of the grain deal. Anyway, your thoughts on everything that happened?
Well, first of all, can I just come back to what you said? Because, of course, we discussed this at great length in the programs that we did at the time the grain deal was reached, and you're absolutely correct. Now, Ukraine does supply grain, and it is an important grain exporter, but it is completely dwarfed by Russia. Russia is a far bigger grain exporter than Ukraine. It's also a major supplier of fertilizer. And of course, what had happened up to July was that even though the European Union, and we're basically talking here about the European Union because the United States has a more distant role in this grain trade and export trade.
Okay, so what's being said here? Not only is Europe, or Western Europe, if you will, about to suffer freezing their nuts off, right? But they ain't gonna have nothing to eat because these are weapons. Energy is a weapon in war. Food, logistics. You can't fight a war if you don't have oil, if you don't have energy, if you don't have food, if you don't have logistics to supply your troops with what is needed in order to wage war. Right? And this is strategic. Vlad knows exactly what he's doing. All right? And what is this going to do? They're going to have to rely on their allies. NATO is going to have to supply these things. It's going to bring that war, more into focus. It's going to escalate this war. Uh, NATO is going to have to come out of the shadows. Babylon the Great is going to have to come out of the shadows and say, okay, well, we're the ones fighting the war. Then it will be declared a world war. All right?
Grains. The European Union never formally imposed sanctions on Russian food and fertilizer exports. In practice, the sanctions that they launched meant that those exports of food and fertilizer came to a complete stop. So a deal was done in July, and I think July is an important month because, as I'm going to discuss, timing in all of this matters a great deal. And we're going to look at the Sevastopol attacks in a moment because they obviously have bearing on this. But we're coming back now to July. So what happened was Putin went around, he gave interview after interview. He said, look, Ukraine is important. We are far more important. The real problem is that nobody's buying we're not able to export our grain because it's all blocked in Western ports. Our fertilizers are also blocked in Western ports. People are reluctant to carry our grain on their ships because they worry every day that Western sanctions might be imposed, and that will mean that they'll lose insurance and that they could face fines. So the result is we can't export in the way that we want to export, and it's our exports that are essential in order to make food supplies, to stabilize food supplies around the world. And what happened was you then got a procession of leaders from various countries of the global south coming along, and they clearly accepted Putin's views on this. And after a lot of negotiations, which involved Guterres, the UN Secretary General, and the UN, a deal was done. Now, the Russians have always insisted that they have never blockaded Odessa to merchant ships. They've never sought to prevent ships with grain leaving Odessa. That's what they have consistently said. And they're still saying it, by the way. Now, I think it's something we need to talk about in a moment. But they did say, look, to the extent that you're not able, or you have this psychological problem that prevents you exporting grain through Odessa, we're prepared to set up these humanitarian corridors. We're prepared to deal with, we're going to do it with Turkey. The Turks can provide escorts. There need to be inspections to make sure that ships don't come in and out of Odessa transporting weapons and things of that kind. But we're prepared to enter into a deal over this, provided the EU in return makes it clear that our exports of grain and fertilizer are unblocked, because that's the ones that really matter. So, an deal was indeed reached. The European Union issued a statement in which they said categorically, we have no sanctions on Russian food and fertilizer exports, and we have no intention of ever imposing such sanctions. And in fact, they even appear to row back some of their sanctions that they previously imposed, which appeared to affect Russian exports of food and fertilizer.
Okay, now this might seem boring because there's no guns shooting and missiles firing off and, pictures of dead people. But this is warfare. Everything that's being discussed here is how you wage war. This is a greater part of the asymmetric war that's going on right now. All right, it's like a chessboard. All right, how can a soldier fight if he's hungry? If he doesn't have any energy to fight? Okay, if there's no oil, if there's no gas for tanks, then it's just a tank. It can't move. It can't shoot. There's no ammunition. It's called logistics. You need things, in order to fight a war. So, let me see. This is going to go on for 44 minutes. So, I mean, we're done. It's just a little update. All right, here's what's going on. Food. All right. And we all know what's going on with food, even here in Babylon the Great. They're setting this whole thing up, right? So a famine is coming. All right. Two famines. Famine of the word and a famine of food and water. So it behooves you to be on your watch and to be prepared for these things, right? Because if you are in the secret place of the Most High, or in the strong tower, that is his name, then he says, my servants shall eat, my servants shall drink, and have what they need. And this is where you want to be. All right, so let's get one on the way out. If you want to watch the rest of this, the channel is called The Duran. This is an hour ago. Russia begins dismantling Biden's neocon Ukraine project, which largely goes into, this was going to be the center of operations for the NWO. Okay, this is what they're not saying. They got the Nazis over there. They got the small hats over there. This is largely the Khazarian Empire, the rebirth, the renaissance, if you will, of the Khazarian Empire. This is what's going on over there. They're keeping it quiet. The Fourth Reich, if you will, as they destroy Babylon the Great, the corporation is over, right? They're cool with the missiles that are going to destroy this place. They just think they can rally and parlay. That's why they moved everything to China. There's nothing being made here in Babylon. They moved it. They know that this is ground zero. All right? They know those missiles are coming here. Anyway, let's just get World War III, because very soon they are going to declare war. They have not declared war yet, but they will. Okay, so how do we know they will and that this thing isn't going to go away? Peace and safety. Peace and safety is going to bring sudden destruction. All right. So we'll just read this and we'll see you tomorrow, huh? Revelation 11 and 14, the second woe has passed. Behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Thus saith the Lord. You understand? We know that World War III is coming. Quickly, shortly, quickly. Third woe is coming soon. The third terror is coming quickly. Soon come. Coming shortly, coming quickly. Soon. At once. The third woe comes at once. Will be here soon. Coming very soon. All right. Doth come quickly. All right. So with that, we hope that the elect will edify you, brothers and sisters. With that, shalom.